to the Hello Road podcast. I'm Ethan.
I'm Paul.
And today we have our first returning guest.
Hello.
Who is it? Does anybody know who it is? Actually, if you read the title,
voice.
you'll probably know who it is.
They probably know by now.
They probably know by now. It's Mr. Steven Ewing from CNET, most recently, and many other places.
Lots of other places.
Lots of other places.
Yes. Autoblog and Motor One and Winding Road and Automobile and all that stuff.
It's great to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Nice. You get to sit on the comfy Hello Road couch.
I know, it's nice.
Yes.
I have a couch and a beer. I'm fine.
Perfect. That's all we provide.
Yep.
There's nothing else. There's actually this room. If you picture the room, it's just a couch and beer. There's nothing else in it.
And the coffee table.
And the coffee table.
Coffee table. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So last time you came here, you drove a Hyundai Elantra. We
I did.
Remember that.
Which is
Sport.
very,
I think it was the
exciting.
sport.
It was
We
the
have to
sport.
emphasize the sport.
So it was quite sporty.
It was. I
Yep.
liked it, actually. The more time I spent with it, I realized it was like a super good value, nice little car, super fun to drive, like kind of a cheaper alternative to like a Volkswagen GTI.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Nice.
You just got to get over the Hyundai badge. There, I said it again.
You said it like that again.
it's Hyundai like Sunday.
Hyundai like see.
They
Can't
used
do
to little interesting thing when Hyundai would have like press event registrations. The password for a lot of them for a long time was always Hyundai like Sunday.
That's funny.
Yeah, because the subliminal that way.
Yes. Yep. That's good. Just please say it correctly.
If we make them type it,
Yeah.
they'll know.
I just learned today that what I thought was the Kia Sportage is the Kia Sportage. Why did I not know that?
No, it's the Sportage.
Well, I found an old commercial,
oh,
very, very old Kia commercial, and they pronounced it Sportage.
Oh,
It had a thing over.
So did that maybe change at some point?
I think it might have because I've only ever, at least professionally, known it as the Sportage. I used to call it the Sportage as like ha 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 ha. You know, like.
Okay, because I just saw, or maybe it was maybe when one of the first Kia commercials that I saw, I just popped up on YouTube, and it was maybe 20 years ago, approximately, I'd say, and they pronounced it Sportage. So wonder what happened at Kia. We need to get down.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
We do.
Okay. So speaking of Kias and Hyundais, you drove something similar here?
No, I'm in the Nissan GT-R Nismo
At
the moment, which is just, it's basically, it's a turbocharger with a wing on it, and that's it.
Okay.
And that's it. And it's the GTR, it's funny, like I remember when the GTR came out in 2009, and like I was super excited to get in the first one.
Yeah.
And now it's been 10 years and it's not really different at all.
Yeah.
You know, you get inside and you're like, oh, right. I mean, the car is super capable. Everyone always says it's like driving a video game, which I actually don't believe in that. People are like, oh, it's so easy. Like the car does so much of the work for you. And I'm like, maybe. But if you do anything wrong, this car can like super kill you.
Yeah.
Like no doubt about it.
Not just kill you, like
super kill you.
Yeah, that's
Super
much
Kill
different.
Nismo.
Right.
Yes.
And the Nismo, it means it's got 600 horsepower and it's got more vents and more wings and more scoops and ducts and all that stuff. And it's got little red stripes along the outside.
I know about red stripes on the outside.
It's very,
Yes.
yes, you do.
My Fit Sport has red stripes.
But it's extra sporty.
Extra sporty. Yeah.
But the GTR, it's funny, you start it up and it still kind of has this like this really buzzy, wheezy nose or noise going on with it. And it's still, every time you shift the gears, it just sounds like somebody left like a wrench somewhere in the transmission tunnel. Like the number of noises that this car makes, it's just like, and I'm trying to remember how long ago it was, but I was talking to someone who I don't believe works for Nissan anymore, but worked for Nissan for a while.
Okay.
And they were talking about the GTR to some people, and they were like, well, as you know, the GTR kind of has some like little sounds that it makes to let you know it's kind of alive. And it's basically their way of saying like, yes, we understand that the car does sound broken. It's correct.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. And that's been the case since it was launched, correct?
It's always sounded broken and weird and terrible. And it's kind of part of the charm now. I can like 100% say no car on the road sounds like the Nissan GTR.
Yeah.
Nothing. And the noise that you get inside and the noise that it makes outside, completely different.
Yeah. So the thing I always kind of wondered about that, because I've heard that too, it's obviously there was a lot of engineering that went into this vehicle. And did they decide to try not to engineer that out of it, or do you have any insight on that?
I don't. I think it's just. I think it's the way that the engine sounds. I think it's just the way the exhaust is tuned. I think it's with the sound deadening and the design of the whole thing. I think it just kind of like sort of had to be that way. And there's times when it kind of sounds cool and it just sounds a little bit unique. Like it definitely sounds special. And like it sounds kind of like you're really involved with the whole experience.
Yeah.
And I will say I do appreciate that unlike a lot of manufacturers, there's no like fake engine noise piped in. There's no enhanced sound or anything like that because nothing, as far as I'm concerned, sounds worse than a fake engine noise.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
Yeah. Not great.
No.
That whole car, if I'm not mistaken, well, let me go back a little bit. The engine is hand built, but the whole entire car is not hand built. Right?
Correct, but the engine's hand built.
The engine is hand built. So I was thinking about the wrench in the transmission.
It's possible.
It's like, hey, so this is Nissan part blah 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 blah, and we call it the wrench in the trans tunnel, and we put it in every GTR to make that cool sound, that clunk sound. But it's really just there for show.
The engine's great actually. If you get the chance, open the engine bay on one of these, and it's got like this like red and polished bits, and it's a really pretty engine bay.
Yeah.
And it's a really pretty engine, and it's got, like the plaque with the signature of the man or woman who put it together. It's really cool. But then like you get inside the actual cabin of the car and you're like, oh, this is the headlight stock from the Versa. And like these buttons are from the like 2 generations ago Altima. And,
kind of reminiscent of what people used to say about Corvettes.
It's very Corvette-y inside in that it's like, oh, that's right. Like you're a Chevy.
Exactly.
I'm
sort of curious what your thoughts are on, the GTR has been out for 10 years. In this new one, who is it for? Who's buying these things?
Because I don't know.
They haven't changed. They haven't changed that much, and that sort of makes me think to the 370Z as well. Who's buying a new one instead of just buying one that's a few years old?
Well, Nissan, at least with the GTR, has been doing like little incremental updates throughout the years. Like this one, the 2020 GTR Nismo, it's got some new suspension hardware. It's got like slightly different powertrain stuff to it, so it's a little bit different than a 2019, which was a little bit different than an 18. And they've kind of made these like little itty bitty tweaks over the years. But honestly, I'm trying to remember when it was. I think it was maybe 2017 or 2018 where the GTR actually got a pretty decent suspension upgrade. And so that was kind of the like a shift that was worthy enough of being like, okay, it's different now. They made it a little easier to live with every single day, which before the car was extremely difficult to live with on the regular. That said, I mean, I think if you put me inside of let's say a 2010 GTR and then a 2020 GTR, the differences that you're going to feel are going to be pretty minor. And I don't think that, especially now since like GTRs are starting to show up on the used market, and they're not like really holding their value because they're still making new ones. Someone who's looking for like a brand new, let's say $100,000 base GTR, you could spend that money and get like a track edition that from 5 years ago for the same price. It's a little bit used, but it's the same car. So I don't know who now is buying a GTR. I think it's just loyalists and fanboys, and because especially at the price that you're talking about, like $100,000 to start. There are so many other more modern cars that drive better than a GTR and are easier to live with and just nicer overall. You have to want a GTR. And to its credit, a lot of people just want a GTR. In the same way that like, the Dodge Challenger is like 15 years old at this point, but they still sell a ton of them because people just want a Challenger.
Totally.
So,
yeah, that makes sense. GTRs. Every once in a while, you go on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, you'll see one pop up for about 50, 60 grand for a few years old. And I kind of consider selling all my cars for a car that sounds like it's got a transmission.
I have to say, if you get the chance to drive one, you should. They're like really unique. It's a really rewarding experience.
I've never driven one.
Super quick reflexes. It's a big car, and it just has this really like cool feeling to it. You definitely, in the way that a lot of other cars now feel a little bit numb, a little bit disconnected, the GTR is like so far and away not that car. You really feel like you're part of the experience. So should definitely drive one. I don't know that I would ever buy one myself, but like I'm never gonna say no to driving one because they're super cool cars.
Yeah, totally. So you've been traveling a lot. It seems like you always travel a lot.
I do. I travel quite a bit.
Yeah.
I always say it's easier for me than a lot of other people on my staff just because like I don't have, spouse and kids and
Sure.
pets and things like that to worry about. So if it's, hey, we need someone to get on a plane for a week and a half. Like,
Okay.
all right. I guess I'll just pack.
Yeah. So I don't know what you can talk about now, but like just judging from your Instagram, it looks like you were in Portugal, you were in Germany a couple days before that. You were in
I can tell you I was in Portugal to drive the new BMW M8, so the M version of the 8 Series. I can't talk about that one yet.
Wait, can you tell if it's a coupe or a sedan?
I drove the coupe.
Okay.
I drove the coupe and the convertible.
Okay.
The 2-door coupe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like the actual coupe.
The
The
actual
coupe.
coupe.
Which is funny because then I drove the 840i Grand Coupe, which is the sedan.
Yes.
So it's whatever. But so can't talk about those yet.
Yep.
But that 8 Series Grand Coupe embargo lifts sometime this week, so that story should be up soon. The M8 is next month, but got to drive them at Portimao race circuit near Faro in Portugal, which is a great track. I've driven it a couple times before, and it was like soaking wet while we were out there. So you put a 617 horsepower BMW M8 on a soaking wet track and put a bunch of jet lagged media inside of it.
That sounds like a recipe for fun.
Yeah. It was a good time. I mean, no one went wrong and nothing went bad, and that's one of those events where like they don't invite people that they know are going to probably like screw up the cars.
Name names. Can you name some names? I'm just
Nobody
kidding.
screwed
This is
up
not
any
a salacious
cars. I
podcast.
know. Nobody screwed up any cars. So can't talk about that. Can tell you that Lisbon is beautiful. Faro is beautiful. Portugal is like my favorite country in Europe.
Okay.
So before that, I did kind of a whirlwind, like 3-part trip where it started. I went to Stuttgart, Germany, to see the factory where Porsche is building the new Taycan, which is, I mean, normally that kind of sounds like, oh, it's just a factory. But what's interesting about it is, so the Taycan is built in Stuttgart in Zuffenhausen, which is where Porsche builds the sports cars. So the 911s, the Caymans, the Boxsters. Yep. The initial plan was to build the Taycan somewhere else because like the Panamera is built in Leipzig. It's easier to, if you're going to build a new factory, to build out in the middle of nowhere, right, instead of in this confined space that you already have.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was they talked to the workers group, the union there, and the union workers actually came up with the idea that they were going to sacrifice parts of their yearly or like scheduled pay raises in order to pay, like to fund some of the money needed for this like huge investment to turn this factory over. And then they actually, it's this whole cool process where they ended up get the money back in time with interest and all this. But it's like,
interesting.
They really wanted the Taycan to be built there. So it is. And the factory is beautiful. There are no conveyor belts. Everything moves around on these little like autonomous pods that kind of like beep and boop their way through.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The factory. So there's no big conveyor belt lines.
I have a quick question. Are there any tents that cars could be built
no
in?
Tents. No tents.
Okay,
no,
just
the Germans don't really do tents for their car production.
Okay. Because there's I don't know if there's maybe some manufacturer here in California that
I don't
does
know
that,
if I can't remember what it's called now, but there's it's like a California-based EV startup.
Not sure. Yeah.
What is that? Farad? No,
Riveted? Rivian? I'm not sure who. Yeah. Don't know.
I heard they're not allowed to run front license plates on their cars.
Oh.
I've never seen one on them.
Yep. No. Okay.
But yeah, so cool new factory. Yep. So did that and then took the train up to Frankfurt for the Frankfurt Motor Show.
Okay.
Which this year was pretty cool. The thing about Frankfurt is unlike like the LA Auto Show, let's say, which is in like the LA Convention Center, which is, like in a square block or something.
Yep.
The Frankfurt Convention Center is kind of laid out over like a square mile. Oh. So there are times where like you have the press center, which is up at the top of, I think it's like Hall 5. And then you have like the BMW stand, which is in Hall 11.
Yeah.
And it's like legitimately a 1/4 mile walk.
Yeah.
From one to the other. So it's the only show I always say where you see like German executives in business suits and then Nikes because everyone's just kind of like running long distances between everything.
Yep.
But Frankfurt was great. New Defender.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that.
What do you guys think?
I wasn't initially like, oh, I love it. I wasn't, I'm not really laying it over like aficionado, so I don't really have a strong opinion on it. But I looked at it like, kind of looks cute. Kind of, that was the first thing my first thing that I sent is cute. Like, should it be? I don't know.
I think it's done justice, the evolution of it over from how long did the original Defender last for, basically?
Ever.
Since the 1700s, I think.
I think so.
But no, it's a good evolution of it. It looks great, and we're getting them here, correct?
Yep, it's going to be sold here. We're getting
awesome.
That's kind of the big. That's like the
two wheelbases,
big news.
2-door, 4-door. And the thing is, in order to make the Defender project like worth doing, is they have to evolve it. They have to make it, easier to live with, more things for more people, because it wouldn't have worked otherwise. So. Right. I think it still kind of looks like an early 2000s. Like if you told me that was the concept for the original Honda Element, I'd be like, yeah, totally.
Exactly.
But it's got some weird stuff to it. Like, it's a little too bubbly in some areas. And I'm hoping it drives well. I hope it drives like a Defender, in that I want it to be a little awful.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Like, in the way that
be a little noisy and a little bit squeaky.
Exactly. In the way that, like, part of the reason why I love the Mercedes G-Class so much is because it's kind of terrible sometimes, but it's super charming for that. I hope the Defender is like that too.
Yeah.
So let's see. What else is at Frankfurt? The Audi RS6 Avant, which we are also getting in the States.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of talk about that. I don't know if anybody's going to buy those.
I mean,
six people maybe.
The 8 people who buy it are going to be very happy with their purchase.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that will say they're going to buy one, but will never do it.
I always say there are cars that exist just for press fleets, and this is one of them.
Yes.
But it's going to be, it's funny because it'll be Audi's way of saying, like, all right, you guys complain that we never give you cool, fast wagons. Here.
Yep.
And then when no one buys one and they take it away, and everyone's like, oh, everyone's discontinuing all their cool, fast wagons, they're going to be like, you didn't buy any. Well, we gave you one. You didn't buy it.
Sure. And it seems like that if they only sell 7 of them, it'd probably be good for somebody that just wants to invest. I mean, the CTSVs have held their value, or I don't know if they've held their value, but they've held their value. Up there.
The CTSV wagons, especially like the 6-speed manual ones, hold their value extremely well. And those are great cars.
Yep.
So, hoping the RS6 Avant is good based on things I've heard about the RS7, which it shares a lot of its underpinnings with. Should be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it looks pretty cool.
It
looks really. I mean, I like most Audis, so that one does look pretty nice,
especially when they got a long.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
Yep,
so good.
But it's not an SUV. Nobody's gonna buy it.
No, I know.
Oh, yeah, well. Maybe they'll make an all-road version, RS6.
RS6 all-road?
Yeah. And that's what'll bring everyone.
So what's weird is the A6 all-road, the new one, is being sold in Canada, but hasn't officially been confirmed for the US yet.
Okay.
Yet. I say yet because I have a feeling, but I say yet.
Okay. Yeah.
If I had to guess, I mean, why get a car approved for sale in Canada
if it's not going to be
especially when it's a North America thing,
right?
Totally. So we'll see.
Yeah,
expect to see that.
So then you also did Goodwood recently.
I went to the Goodwood Revival, but right before Revival, so Subaru does this Goodwood Revival trip.
Okay.
Pretty much every year, which is everyone's like, why? Because there are no Subarus at Goodwood Revival.
A bunch of Subaru 360s.
Right. There's just like there aren't any, but it's just become this kind of like thing that happens every year. But what we ended up doing beforehand was Subaru imported a whole fleet of US spec WRX STIs. And we went to this place called Shelsley Walsh, which is kind of way on the other side of
sounds very English.
The country. Oh yeah. It's like it's in the country and it's beautiful.
Yep.
But it's actually the world's oldest hill climb course. Older than Goodwood, older than Pikes Peak.
Yep.
In that it's the oldest one that's been continuously running since it was founded.
Yep.
This one was founded in I think 1901.
Oh wow.
And the first like sanctioned hill climb race was in 1905.
Wow. Okay.
And it's the same track that it was back then. It's been paved. But it hasn't changed the layout, anything else. And it's great. It's super short.
Yep.
So running it in a WRX STI, I think the fastest time that any of us in our group got was like 35 and a half seconds.
Oh, so it is short.
Wow.
So it's pretty short.
Okay.
But it's also like, it's basically a driveway. So it's really narrow. I think at its like average, it's about 12 feet wide at any given point, so we did like a reconnaissance thing where we actually walked up it, which was fun.
Yeah.
What were the times for walking up it? Just out of curiosity.
About 6 hours. No. But you're walking up it and you're like, oh, this is fine. This is great. And then when you're in an STI and you're like hitting the rev limiter in third gear and you're coming up to a turn, you're like, I don't know.
What's the runoff? Trees or
trees, walls,
Yeah.
a cliff.
Yeah. Okay.
There's like a
Yeah.
little guardrail, but like
Yeah.
the guys running the whole show kept reiterating, they're like, there is nowhere for you to go if you get it wrong. Like if you get it wrong, you're either going into the side of a hill because it's kind of built onto the side of this whole hill.
Yeah.
They're like, you either fall down the hill or you go into the hill or into the trees or something.
Yep.
The only bit of safety they have is the last final bit of it. There's kind of like a dip in the middle, but it's a long straightaway towards the finish line. And then you crest the top of the hill and you have to immediately hit the brakes. And then there's like a big turnaround where there's a staging area. They have put like a thing of like kitty litter up there basically.
Sure.
So if you go off or like if your brakes fail, there is one of those like runaway truck ramps types of things.
Yes.
But it's way up at the top of the hill. Otherwise, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah. So when you're doing something like this, where's your sort of threshold between I want to have a fun time and I don't want to ruin this whole trip for everybody.
That was the other thing is we were reminded over and over again that the STIs we were driving were also the STIs that were getting us back to our hotel that day.
Okay.
So like, please don't dump the clutch and please don't slam it into a wall. And you're driving and you the first couple of times everyone's being a little bit conservative and we're doing it just so you can kind of learn like, okay, I really only have this much room out of this corner.
Yep.
I know that this one's kind of like a blind late apex, so I have to be careful here. And then you start doing it faster and faster, and you start to take a couple more chances, and you like kind of build up that confidence. But then every once in a while, you do a thing where I think it's technically turn 2, where you come into this left-hander, and it's a really late apex, and then as you go out towards this straightaway, as you kind of the car slides out a bit. Like the mirrors will brush against the leaves of the shrubs right there, and you're just like, whoa, like, oh, okay, like that's right. There's a wall there.
Yes.
And when you're like kind of clipping the grass in some points, and there's like a little bit of a divot, like, it's a little scary. There's also up at the top, the last turn, there's a grate in the middle of the driveway, kind of off to the side, but still like. If you hit the grate, it'll completely upset the balance of the car. So they're like, don't hit the grate. Like you have to go around it. So you have to kind of like look for it as you're doing it. It's really cool. So
yeah, it sounds fun.
There were, I think 12 media that went. And of course they're like, well, we're going to time you.
Great.
And so it was timed runs. And at the end of the day, they were like, it was just kind of for bragging rights, whatever. So I came in second. Out of 12.
Who came in first?
A lovely gentleman named Kirk Bell, who writes for the internet brands sites like Motor Authority and Car Connection.
Also, I'd like to know who came in last.
I don't know.
We don't need to divulge.
I only remember that it was Kirk was first, I was second, and then third was a nice guy friend of mine, Zach Palmer, who writes for Autoblog right now. So, but Kirk was like, I think like 35.8 seconds. I was like 36.2 or something, and like Zach was like 37.
Were you able to sort of compare that to like what a pro and a STI would have
done? So the course record right now, which was set in a V6 powered like open wheel race car, is 28 seconds. Which they were like, you'll never get anything close to that. The organizers said that any time in a car like a Subaru STI, because they run up that hill all the time. A good time is anything under 40 seconds.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So
great.
Most of us still did pretty well. And of course, so I have a whole story about it up on CNET Roadshow right now. And my favorite thing that I did in it was I make a point of doing this every time. Anytime I do a story about a hill climb, I specifically use the phrase, running up that hill, and I link it to the Kate Bush music video.
Yes. And people, what percentage of people you think actually catch that?
None.
That's
but
funny.
I do it just for myself because
There you go.
I'm proud because my daughter knows that song.
Good.
And she's 2.
It's a great song.
And it comes up and she's like, I love Kate Bush.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's
She's a
great.
big
Like
fan.
I have to put that in every one of those
Yes,
stories.
you should. I saw that. I think you posted on Instagram.
So
yeah.
did the Shelsley Walsh thing, super great. Did a whole big drive back to a nice hotel. Had a great time in the UK. Like took helicopters to Goodwood. And then Goodwood Revival it's different than Festival of Speed in that whereas Festival of Speed is very like manufacturer sanctioned and you've got it's new cars. There's older stuff too, but it's mostly new cars. Revival is all historic. And it's like
and it's separated by like a month or something? How is it?
So Festival of Speed is in June
or
June,
July. Okay, so a couple months.
And then Revival's in September.
Okay.
Revival is, there's like it's a lot of pre-war stuff.
Yep.
A lot of post-war too. Now kind of more than ever. There was actually kind of a bigger like 60s and 70s vibe this year than I had ever really seen before. But the whole point is it's not just a car show. So it's at the Goodwood Motor Circuit, which is at, on the same grounds.
Yep.
And there's racing that's happening all weekend, and there's different classes and different races and stuff. And it's owners or, like cars that are owned by manufacturers, and they have people racing them. And it's but it's not like parade laps. People are like legit racing. Like there are crashes.
Yep.
Things go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But then even if you never watch any of the racing, there's this whole other world happening where so you get off the helicopter and then you're transported in on like an old Willys Jeep or like an old Power Wagon or something. And they're like the most well-maintained old like 40s Jeeps you've ever seen. And you go to this place where they've got all these old historic airplanes, and it's like it's like a World War II airfield, basically. You go inside and there's this place called The Mess where we went and you stay. They have like food and drinks and stuff, but it's like a mess hall that you would have had in the war. And there's like actors that are portraying like generals, like giving out commands and things. And there are like singers that go around and like sing war songs, and there's posters and all this everywhere. And the whole thing is just like so outrageously well done.
Yeah.
That you really feel like you've been transported back into this world. So there's all of that. There are exhibits of like culture from the era. There's just this, every little last thing is done to the point where they've specifically positioned where they have the few electronic bits. Like let's say there's an ATM.
Sure.
And it'll be in an old phone booth. And then they have the cords coming out the roof and then up into the trees. So there aren't cords everywhere.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's just it's super
a lot
cool.
of attention to detail. Definitely.
It's very much encouraged that you dress the part.
Okay. Did you?
I did.
Okay, great.
Because I did for two reasons. A, like part of the whole thing with the Subaru trip is they're like, please don't send anyone who's not going to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all having fun. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Like don't be the guy that, doesn't show up wearing anything.
Sure. Okay.
So, and it's pretty flexible what you can do. I mean, and if you just put on like a newsboy hat and a bow tie,
sure,
and like, tweed pants, you're fine.
Yep.
So, but for one of the days, I actually wore a full, like dark green, like a pit fire suit.
Mm-hmm.
And I wore that.
Okay.
Because a lot of people walk around in that stuff, but then you wear it with a collared shirt and a tie underneath it. Because like if you want to get into the paddock, I think the rule is for women you have to either be in a dress or have a jacket on, and for men you have to have a collared shirt with a tie.
Okay. Yes.
In order to get into the paddock, which is like, if you want to see what's in here, you have to participate.
Yep. That makes sense. That's kind of a cool way to set it up.
It's awesome.
To really make you actually participate.
It's really jarring when you see the guy walking through in just the t-shirt and jeans, and you're like,
wait, did you get the memo?
Yeah, you're like, wait, hold on. But then
you must have come back from the future.
Exactly. And then there's this whole other section of shops and restaurants and food and drinks and all this, and it's all this cool period correct stuff. Like, here's the other thing, and this is what makes me mad about the people that don't show up in costume.
Yep.
If you show up and you don't have an outfit, there are like 50 stores that will sell you hats and ties and shirts and pants and everything. There's like whole clothing sections where you can just buy it right there.
Yeah.
This is like it's an automotive Ren Fair is basically what it's
basically.
Like.
It's kind of like the Renaissance Fair, but for automotive.
That's awesome.
Because there's also like a huge carnival. I rode a carousel. I rode the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, like the final like icing on the cake is the parking lot, where you can there's 2 parking lots. There's the main parking lot, and then there's the special parking lot where if your car is before a certain year, I think it's like maybe 1970, something like that, you're eligible to park in the front lot. And so people just walk through the parking lot because it's like super old, beautiful, beautiful stuff. And it's like it's a car show in and of itself.
Yeah.
The Goodwood Revival parking lot is a better car show than most car shows in the United States. Like for real.
Yeah.
But so it's a thing where we spent 3 days at Revival. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And there's between the racing and everything else, you know, you spend 3 days there and you're like, I would go back again. Like you still don't feel like you've seen everything.
Okay.
The best thing about the end of each day is as the group gets together, it's you know, because everyone just kind of splits up and does their own thing.
Sure.
And it's listening to what other people did. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that was there. Like, I should go do that tomorrow. Or like, wait, where was there a Ferris wheel? And you're like, oh, it's over there. And you go on it there. And it's just, there's a never ending like list of things you can do. I went last year and had the best time. And so I was coming back this year kind of like, oh, I wonder if like that excitement will have worn off because I've done it before and I know what to expect. Nope. If anything, the second time around, it's even better because you're like, all right, Friday is the best day to do shopping and carnival stuff. Saturday is the best day to like watch stuff from the start finish and go see the paddock and like meet the drivers. And then Sunday is the best day to just like hang out and drink champagne and watch racing.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you told me that in my career, I could only go to one event every single year, I would pick Goodwood Revival and say I would take it over any drive program, any auto show.
Wow.
I would do it over Pebble Beach. I would do it over all that stuff. It is the coolest event.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting something else on my bucket list now. Wow.
That
sounds
awesome.
Yeah, it sounds great.
It's so good. And I like it because there's no sponsorship. There's no like manufacturer involvement. It's just put on. And what's interesting is, so Festival of Speed, which does have a lot of corporate sponsorship and involvement and all this stuff, has gotten that way because Festival of Speed effectively has to pay for Revival as well.
Okay.
Because the ticket sales obviously are part of it, but it's not enough. So it's kind of like the reason why Festival has gotten to be a little more corporate is because they have to make enough money to then support doing Revival later in the year.
You know, and it's funny because you look at Festival of Speed, and it's really cool. I mean, it's essentially a hill climb up somebody's driveway, from my understanding, correct?
Yep, the Duke of Richmond.
The Duke of Richmond.
His driveway.
His driveway.
Yes. Which
what if he needs to go to the market? You know,
he's watching, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. All right.
Interestingly enough, I've done the
damn
hill
kids
climb.
driving up my driveway again.
I've done the hill climb up the Goodwood driveway, also in WRX STIs. I did that a couple years ago. And I have to say the Shelsley Walsh one is better.
Okay, that's funny.
Way more interesting.
Yeah.
These people with their fancy driveways. No, I mean, you look at it though, like in the last couple of years, it has really gotten very, not very, but it's gotten a lot more corporate. There's a lot more things out there that you see, you know, the Volkswagen, what is it? Not the Volkswagen, or was it the Volkswagen, the e-tron thing? Not e-tron, that's not
the IDR.
Oh,
Thank you.
There you go.
There you go. The IDR running up it, you know, is kind of there to show that, oh, look, electric propulsion going up this thing. And you know, it's all those other little fun things. And then, not that this was there, but, you know, like, you know, Tecate banners all around it, you know, like you see it at a race out here.
Oh,
you know.
I mean, car makers use it to debut cars. A lot of car makers have started doing this thing, which I think is ridiculous. But they call it, a car will make its dynamic debut. And I'm air quoting that.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
kind of makes me a collective groan.
But like, okay, we showed the car at an auto show, but now we're going to show it in motion. Going up this hill slowly.
Yes.
Festival of Speed is a really great time. That's another like total thing I would love to go to. This year when I went, I spent the majority of my time up at the rally stage, which is way more fun.
Okay.
Because there's far less corporate involvement there, and it's just rally cars plowing through the woods.
Yeah.
And you can like hang out and talk to the drivers, and it's just super chill.
Yeah.
Because that driveway is not very, I mean, it's long, but it's not really a spectator type of a thing.
There are places where you can spectate. There are grandstands where you can watch.
Okay.
But it's not, I mean, you don't really get the whole picture.
Right.
Yeah.
So good money's on go to the Revival.
If you're going to do one of the Goodwoods, go to the Revival. For sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, don't even think twice about it. Just go to Revival.
Yeah. And so obviously we're talking about all these car shows that all these events you've been going to. So we talk about maybe Monterey for a second. Like, do you think that whole experience could be improved upon based on like what you've seen at Goodwood, or like just kind of like a different thing, you know?
Monterey is different because Monterey Car Week is multiple events.
Yeah.
Happening simultaneously. There's auctions. There's the big Pebble Beach Concours.
Yeah.
There's the Quail Gathering. There's Concorso Italiano. There's all of this different stuff, and there's a lot of.
Do you think it's too much? Too much going on.
I think it's too much.
Exhausting for a lot of people. Like, I'm curious. Like,
yes,
you've gone there many years. Do you look forward to it?
I do, because it's still a really good time and you get to see a lot of really cool cars and really interesting people. But Monterey Car Week now has basically become like a 5-day long auto show that you have to drive between all the events.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, it's work. Like the way that we staff and cover Monterey Car Week is the same way that we would do any other auto show.
Okay.
Is we treat it with the same kind of importance. And it's become more and more of that every year. And honestly, I think that for a lot of companies, especially like luxury brands, the return on investment is way greater at a place like Monterey, because the people that are going to see the car are the people that actually will buy those cars. If you're Aston Martin, you know, you show a car there, you're showing it to people who would actually buy Aston Martins.
Yep.
It's not like, you know, the Chicago Auto Show or something where it's like whoever can just walk in, or like the LA Auto Show where like, yeah, there's some higher clientele there, I guess. But
sure. It's mainly people looking at Hyundai Santa Fe's.
Exactly. But the people who go to Monterey Car Week, it's extremely expensive. So if they can afford that, they can afford a new Bugatti, or they can afford, you know, the coolest thing from this year was Rolls-Royce debuted I think a trio of these like pastel colored cars. There was a Cullinan, there was a Dawn, and there was a Wraith that were in these like Easter egg colors. Yeah. And I remember walking up and they'd showed them in the morning, and I came back in the afternoon and I was talking to a friend of mine who works for Rolls-Royce, and I was like, "Oh, how's the reception been for this?" And she was like, "Well, we sold the pink one and then someone is coming back in a little bit to tell us if they want to buy the yellow one." Yeah. And I'm just like, imagine being the kind of person who you're walking around at this event and you don't know that this car is going to be there, and then all of a sudden they pull the sheet off of this like legit like salmon pink colored car, and thinking to yourself, I need to have this one. And the reason why they bought it there is because they were like, well, if I do a special order, it's going to take 6 months to get it, whatever. They're like, can I just have this one? And of course, Rolls-Royce, being a company that wants to make money, is like, oh yeah, we can sell that to you right now for sure.
Exactly.
Sure. But like, you go to an event and you have no idea what you're going to do there, and then you walk out and you're like, well, I bought this $500,000 car today.
Yep. Yeah, no big deal.
Just like whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think when I think of that, all those events that are going up there. Lots of money flying around, and
I mean, like
salmon colored Rolls Royces flying off the
I mean, like I impulse bought a flask at Goodwood Revival this year because it was £10, and I was like, I don't know, like £10.
Was it salmon colored though? That's the question.
No, it looks like a little jerry can.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Nice.
So,
all right. So there are impulse purchases everywhere you go. Yeah.
Yep. Whether it's a £10 flask or a $500,000 Rolls Royce. Yeah. I guess.
Yes.
Imagine, like, then what do you do with it? Do they just like give it to you?
I don't know.
You just say, all right, here's your car. Like, do you like slap a license plate on it and drive it out?
Yeah.
Like,
I hope so.
Is it like when you were a kid and you went to Shoe Carnival and you bought your new shoes, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to wear them out of the store?" And you were like, "Definitely."
I know that was the best.
Mm-hmm.
That's like it was like this privilege that you could have. So you
I
don't have to wear.
always-
You always wear your new shoes out
I
of the
always
store.
wore the new shoes out of the store. I was like,
Yeah.
"Can you do like when I worked in retail, I would sell shoes to people,
Mhm.
and they would be like, "Oh, can you do the?" Because I would straight lace them.
Oh
the
yes,
kids.
yes,
They're like, "Can you straight lace the shoes for me?" Like, of course.
yes.
No. Selling skater shoes to 14-year-olds.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, very cool. So I keep going back to the Revival, but when you compare like the Revival to like the Monterey Car Week, they have I don't know what the official name for it. They're like the reunion, I guess is what
I
it's
guess
called.
now it's like the Rolex Monterey
Re-
historic reunion. I think.
I mean, I've always envisioned that to be an absolutely epic event, but after kind of hearing more about what the Revival's about, I don't know, maybe that might be a little bit more.
Historics is it's like if Revival was only a race.
Okay.
Because
Mhm.
Historics, I mean, it's at Laguna Seca,
Yeah.
but there's no other stuff. It's just the cars and the paddock and the racing. There's
Yep.
not like shops or other things to see. So
They could learn something from it because I know they have like it's like everything from like old vintage,
Mhm.
muscle to like there's some modern-esque Formula 1
Yeah.
cars. Like they can have like a whole 90s Formula 1 like attire pop-up tent. I mean, that would be awesome.
they
That'd be
they
cool.
could. You could
But-
totally do it that way. And it's interesting you say that only because I can't remember what the name of the company or whatever it is, but I know this because I got pitched on it last year. There's some company or companies or group in America that wants to basically create like the American version of Goodwood Revival, and they want to do it at Laguna Seca.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not tied to Rolex, historic,
Oh.
Monterey,
It seems like
whatever.
it'd be better if it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
They want to do it as a completely separate thing,
Separate
but go
thing.
like all in and, costumes and stores and all that stuff,
Yep.
which I don't know that you could do an exact duplicate.
Yeah.
The Revival wants to. So we actually, we did a big tour with one of the guys that runs the whole show.
Mhm.
And he's like, we'd love to basically, in their perfect world, they would like to be able to kind of like put it in a box and take it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And they want to have like a whole thing where they kind of like sell that experience to Laguna Seca.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring all their people in and they do the whole thing and they set the whole thing up for you. And they like the Goodwood team does it.
Yeah.
But they do it at Laguna Seca or they do it at Road America or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that'll actually happen. I don't
That'd
know
be
if
pretty
it.
cool.
I don't know if it should. I think I want
kinda
Revival to
thinking
stay
that
special.
yeah.
But again, the whole thing comes down to Revival doesn't really make money.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you keep it, viable?
Yeah.
You can only do passion projects for so long.
Right.
And I mean, as long as the festival is bringing in enough cash to, I guess, support it, then fine. But,
Yep.
how long does something like Revival still go on?
Yeah. So,
So-
if you're interested, go next
Oh my
year.
God, you have to go. It's the
Yeah, I
best.
definitely want to go.
You should go.
I definitely want to go next year. We're going.
We're going.
I think.
Done.
Yep.
We'll record from there. They won't like that, but you can record from there.
That's fine.
Well,
We keep it under
you know
the
what we could
radar.
do is we can get some 1940s like radio equipment and figure out some way to do it.
It's the Hello Road podcast
fast
live
talking-
from the Goodwood
live from-
Revival.
was that the transatlantic accent that you're supposed to use?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have to.
The
we'll have to really.
non-regional.
Hey,
Yeah,
kid, scram!
Right.
It'd be so good.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Awesome.
Definitely plan on that.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On my calendar already.
Okay.
Great.
So yeah, you've been quite busy. And then if anybody knows you, you tweet frequently.
I tweet a lot.
You're on the Twitters.
I
Tweet
try to
free-
tweet less these days, just
Yeah.
because I don't want to be one of those people that's just like "Burp, burp, burp, burp," like all the time, or where it's like this flight is stupid, like
Yes.
these peanuts taste funny.
Yes, exactly.
I at least want to have my Twitter be relevant or
No,
interesting.
yeah, it
but
is. It is relevant and interesting, and I
Yes.
definitely think it. That's the whole thing I've noticed with automotive journalists on Twitter is there's a lot of takes. There's a lot of takes. You always have to have your hot
Oh,
take
yeah.
of the day.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Um,
we all have like there are the hills that we will all die on.
Yes,
and like I have mine. Everyone has theirs.
and Bradley Brownell has very strange hills that he wants to die
I-
on. Yeah,
I love Brad so much, but some of the times that I argue with him about things, and I'm like, ugh. But then I just see him
No,
and I just give him a big hug.
yes,
So
yeah.
yeah,
We kid. But I guess you can be. Everybody likes to be a little bit passionate on Twitter sometimes,
Yes.
and I'm curious, based on you're trying to bring some of that passion that you might have for some of your tweets. I'm curious. What, if we talk about maybe new cars now, or newer cars, maybe it doesn't even have to be newer cars. Like I was thinking the other day, like what vehicle, like do you look at, do you see like driving around and it elicits like a violent reaction within your body that you just kind of makes you angry. It just makes you just feel like awful inside just from the design and from the looks. And this doesn't have to be maybe it's not a bad car. Maybe it's not a terrible car. It's just something that just gives you that feeling of like, oh, I really makes me kind of angry. I'm curious if there's anything that just jumps to the tip of your tongue for
Dodge
that.
Journey.
Yes.
The Dodge Journey.
Yes. Okay.
The Dodge Journey. I can't remember. I'm stealing this from someone else, and I don't remember who it was. I want to say it was Jay Ramey from Auto Week tweeted this actually that said, "Is there any more norm core vehicle than the Dodge Journey?" And I was like, I don't know that there is. But so I say this having I had to write something about the Journey recently, and it is like the least competitive product.
It's true.
In one of the most competitive and like most purchased segments now, and it's like laughably bad. Like you can't get it with the V6 anymore.
Does it have a 4-speed auto that was the same as the automatic? Like one of the old Voyagers, Plymouth Voyagers. Like, isn't it an automatic that's been around for decades?
Like it's been in the neon and all that stuff. Yeah,
nice.
So it's the 4-speed automatic with the 4-cylinder engine.
Yeah.
You can't get all-wheel drive anymore in a crossover.
That's funny.
But they sell a version called the Crossroad that looks all butch and off-roady, but it's front-wheel drive. It's oh god, it's so bad. The whole claim is like it's the cheapest 3-row SUV you can buy. And
I
I'm
see them a lot too. I mean, I'm sure you see more of them if you're like maybe in Detroit or somewhere where there's a lot of American
rental
cars,
fleets love them.
Yeah, that's true.
But the other thing is they are cheap.
Yep.
Like they are so cheap.
Yep.
But the thing is, it's like, okay, you could buy this really, really cheap car, or you could spend $2,000 more and buy like a good car. So whenever I see like a new Dodge Journey, I just get angry because I'm like, you don't even care. Like you literally, you took the easy way out. You took the cop out method.
Yep.
You didn't try. You just went and got a Dodge Journey because it's $25,000. Like I get that, but
sure.
So whenever I see whenever I see a new Journey, like if it
has like the paper plates on it in California.
If I drive home tonight and I see a new Journey with a paper plate on it, I'm gonna get like violently angry and pass them in my GTR.
Yeah. For me, it's the CHR, the Toyota CHR.
Chair?
The chair, yes.
Yeah.
And it's only because I think there might have been 7 or 8 different people that were designing like for different parts of the vehicle.
That car looks real bad.
I don't like, and it also makes me angry just the sense that like you have this car that has the potential of having like room in it, and you just chop off that whole back end there and make it completely useless for cargo.
It was supposed to be a Scion.
Yeah,
initially,
exactly.
And then Scion died.
Yep.
Which is why it also doesn't have models because Scions didn't have like trim levels or anything.
Sure.
You can't get it with all-wheel drive, which people in that segment want.
Yep.
And have you ever sat in the back of one?
At the LA Auto Show.
Okay.
Yep.
Like I've never felt so claustrophobic in my life.
Yep.
As sitting in the back of the Toyota
I felt
chair.
claustrophobic in the front.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Oh man, I haven't thought about that thing in a long time. And you always see the stupid like teal one with the white roof, and it's just
the back area where the rear door handle is, that whole section, that's maybe my least favorite design of any part of a car in all of car history. That little section right there where the door handle is, where it meets the back window, where it meets the side window. It's just that little terrible section right there. It's really bad. I don't know. I don't like to talk crap about cars because it's probably I mean, it's probably generally like not terrible, but like it makes me angry.
So there are no terrible cars.
Yeah.
But there are cars that I think are kind of like maybe half-assed, or maybe like like the kid that's not reaching up to his potential or something.
Exactly.
Like the Chevy Malibu, which is just like so pathetic at this point. It's like just kill it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of cars now where you're like just let it die. Like just stop.
Yeah.
And so the things like the Journey is like that too. It's like, just stop.
Yeah, I kind of always wonder
it.
about like the Maxima too. I kind of never really know why the Maxima
I
still
hate
exists.
the Maxima. I super hate the Maxima.
That's funny.
You never see them anymore.
Because I used to love them. The
I did
Maximas
too.
were great.
I totally used to love the Maxima.
I can't figure out why they're here anymore.
So I will say the Maxima looks good.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
The interior is not very good, and it's based on the old platform. So like, you can't get any of the new driver assistance tech inside of it. It still has a pedal parking brake, which is neat.
Yeah.
It's funny because it torque steers, and then there's like no power at the same time. The steering is super heavy at low speed, and then completely dead and vague and numb the minute you start going faster.
Oh, that's weird.
The Maxima is a significantly worse car in every single way than the Altima.
Mhm.
The Altima is more spacious inside in some dimensions, dimensions that count. Nicer inside, more tech, more safety equipment, more features, cheaper. New Altima looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine like, oh man, I want a Maxima.
Well, that's the other thing. That's the next question I was sort of thinking about. So like I think about why the Maxima exists, and it might just sort of be like for those few people that remember what Maximas used to be like or something, or it's the top of the line or whatever, that maybe it's just a marketing thing. I'm curious if there's any cars out there that, where you look at it and like the marketing doesn't line up with what it is, or like, I guess a good thing is like, what car do you think should be selling but isn't? Maybe because they got the marketing wrong, or maybe because there's nobody buying that type of vehicle or something.
So my biggest answer for that was always the Chevy SS sedan.
Okay, yeah.
They didn't sell any because they never told anyone that they made it. And there was no marketing put behind the SS. There was no push. There was no anything. That was the best thing Chevy made for a long time because it was this great rear-wheel drive platform. It had the magnetic ride suspension, 6-speed manual, super nice interior. We used to do this event where Chevy would host media down at the Indy 500 every year, and they would give you, all the people in Detroit, they'd give you an SS, drive to Indy, because it's like 5 hours. And so you'd spend the weekend with this SS and then do, the Indy 500 and all this, and then drive the SS back to Michigan. It was great. I loved that car. And it's dead. And they sold, a couple thousand.
Okay.
The one that I think the new car right now that I think is kind of falling into that world for me is the Kia Stinger.
Yeah.
Which is such a good car, and I've seen like 3.
Yeah, that's interesting. Why? It seems like overall it got pretty great reviews. Lots of people loved it, and
we had a long-term one that we kept for a year at CNET, and we were super sad when it left. We loved that thing. In the snow, it was great. As a road trip car, it was great. As a performance car, it was great. As just like a daily utility car because it had that big old hatchback.
Sure.
So good.
Yeah.
And it's still like, it's been a couple of years since the Stinger came out. That thing still looks so good every time I see one.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of those things where that was probably maybe the first Kia that I actually like stopped and thought, oh wow, that's a Kia. And I think maybe that's what it's just taken a while for that to kind of people to start actually thinking that they would even consider buying a Kia.
I think if that car had any other badge on it, it would do better.
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think people are still kind of having to get over the fact that like it's a Kia.
Sure. Well, even just the logo, I honestly think that the Kia logo does more harm than good at this point. Where you look at you see a lot of people badge swap with I don't know if it's the home market logo, but there's like that
the K.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the home market logo.
And I believe the reason why they can't use that is because it looks too similar to a Lexus. Is that the reason why they haven't brought that here? Or is that not a real thing?
I don't know.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. But it's interesting that like I drove the new Kia Telluride. I thought it was really great.
Awesome.
Yeah. And the only thing that I didn't like about the looks was just that Kia logo. And it wasn't the brand that I didn't like. It was just the actual logo.
No, I hear you.
It just kind of makes me think back to like the
Sophia.
The Sophia, or like
the Spectra.
The Spectra. Wow.
Or the original, the Rio, the like $6,000 Rio that didn't even come with a radio.
Yes.
Where the line was always like, her name is Rio and she's crap. Like, it was such a bad car. But Kias now, Kias are great cars.
Yes.
I really like new Kias, but it's the same thing. You still get that awful stigma of like, yeah, but it's a Kia.
Sure.
I'm like, so what does that mean?
Yeah.
Have you driven one? It's great.
Yep. Definitely. So actually, I was going back to that thing where we're talking about cars that make us angry. We don't want to be all negative. We have to talk about also maybe cars that make us happy. Like, so the inverse of that, is there any car that you kind of see around? It doesn't have to be new, but you just look at it and just kind of warms your soul.
Miatas.
Yeah.
Always. The Miata makes me happy.
Yeah.
Whenever I see a new, especially a GTI, it makes me happy because you basically wanted a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
But you were like, I want something better to drive.
And
like,
I don't want it to not be that.
Anytime
ugly.
that it's the obvious like performance version of a normal economy car, it's like you didn't just wind up in a GTI.
Yeah.
You
thought about it.
The GTI.
Yeah.
So any of those cars, like affordable performance cars, because there's always a non-performance version.
Yep.
So whenever I see like a Civic Si or not even so much like a Type R, but like a WRX or GTI, like stuff like that, where it's the not obvious choice.
Yep.
That stuff makes me happy.
Yeah.
And then Miata just because I love Miata.
Yeah, they're good.
They're great.
They're good. I kind of want another one.
What about you? What makes you happy?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of on the same page when it comes to like the performance version of a, kind of a regular old factory car. I owned a Fiesta ST for a couple years and had a lot of fun with it.
It's a great car.
As long as you get the Recaros and
yes,
that was one of the downfalls of it. But no, things like that make me happy. But then also like seeing just it's the inner Daihatsu owner in me, just seeing something old driving around on the road.
Yeah,
it's like like kind of the Hello Road ethos is just like, oh, how is that still driving?
No, I know. The other day I like literally jumped up and down because I saw a Dodge Shadow. I was like, and then and then 6 hours like 6 hours later, I saw Plymouth Sundance, and I'm like, yes, I saw the twins.
I mean, honestly, one of the most like energetic, like so happy driving experiences I've had this year was taking your Nova around the block a couple times. Because you're like, I'm so glad this car exists, and it's super fun, and it's well kept, and you're like, oh my God, this is a great car. Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same thing too, where it's like somebody actually paid a little bit extra, actually kind of a lot extra for that twin cam over the base Nova. And not many people did that, but
I also really like when I see cars that are just stock. Like the big one for me is I love the Honda S2000. I've always loved that car. I want to buy one, but they're all like beyond modified.
It's the same story with a 240SX. It's like
right.
really nice when you see a stock one that's not beat to crap and the bumpers are off and
Like if the car was supposed to have a wing on it, Honda would have put a wing on it. Don't do stupid stuff. So
can there be a Beyonce song about that?
Yeah, if you like it, then you got to put a wing on it.
No, definitely don't do that.
No, don't do that.
Yes.
Don't do that. Confessional time. I once did a story, a review of the Subaru WRX STI, and I did use the title, "It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Wing."
Okay.
So
yes. Would you do that again?
No.
Okay. Do you regret it?
I don't regret it, but I don't repeat headlines.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I think the buyers for that particular car, they definitely want the wing. Most of them.
Yeah, but I would want it without the wing.
I know, that's the thing. So that's the thing. So I recently I made a video about the Honda Civic Type R, and it's my most disliked video I've ever made because I kind of maybe in a distasteful way said that it looks really ugly.
So the Civic Type R is an amazing car to drive that I could not wake up to in my driveway every day. That car looks terrible. It looks so bad, but I love the Civic Type R so much that I might just put up with it.
That's kind of what I was thinking. And I was trying to think, well, I could maybe deal with it if it was black, so it kind of blends in the plastic.
Yeah, the black vents. The black looks better. Some of the more muted colors look better.
Yeah.
You're gonna think this is weird, but I promise you. So there is a wingless version coming, not to the US.
I saw some like spy photos of that somewhere. And
it looks worse without the wing.
Weird.
Because they put like a deck lid wing on it instead, which just doesn't look
weird.
It doesn't look right.
Maybe they just need a different wing. I'm not sure.
I just think it needs I don't know. The best part about the Type R's wing though is that it's tall enough that you can't see it out the back window, so it doesn't cut your line of sight.
Yep.
The joke used to always be that like on the Evo 8 and the Evo 9, the wing was just tall enough that it would block out the light bar on the top of a police car behind you.
Yep.
Yes.
You know, it's a funny thing. I've been noticing this, and I don't know if it's a option that Honda is giving out now, but I've been seeing a lot of like the Civic Sports, so the same kind of body style that the Civic is.
Yep.
But they're rocking the Type R wing.
Really?
Come to the aftermarket, or they're offering it as an option. I've seen a good couple of them. Yeah,
they're not offering it as an option, but they might be doing what. So, like in the WRX community, people will be on forums and they'll offer
trade deck lid or something.
They do deck lid swaps.
There you go.
Where someone who's got an STI doesn't want the wing, so they'll try to swap with someone who has a normal WRX.
Yep.
Because it's the same part. It's just the wing is put on it.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I'm like 90% sure because the hatchback is the same. Yeah. So you could swap the hatchback between like a Civic Sport and a Civic Type R.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Easy.
Yeah, but I've seen a few of them, and every time I see one, I'm like, oh man, it's happening.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely not a Type R. There's no scoop on the hood. Doesn't have all the little front.
I haven't
pieces.
seen one like that yet. That's
I've seen a couple. At least out in
maybe
I totally believe it.
It's a 909, 951 thing where I work. Yeah, that's kind of what I think it is.
Yeah. The other thing I found kind of interesting from posting that video and seeing the comments that come through. Obviously, there's a lot of people that search for Type Rs, and they're really disappointed to see that I don't like the looks of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have found that a lot of Type R owners are very sensitive about the topic.
They're
very sensitive about the topic.
And again, for me, it goes to like, I'm super happy to see that anyone's buying a Type R.
Oh, totally.
Because I love the Type R.
Yes.
I will always drive that car. I love that car to pieces. Great. I walk out of my house in the morning and I see it and I'm like, ugh, like, it's for me, it's like I'm an adult.
Yeah.
And I have to do adult things. And I don't feel like someone's going to take me seriously if I like you can't go to a funeral in a Civic Type R. You know?
You have to leave
like, no one's going to take you seriously. You can't go to like, you can't go to like a, like a wedding in a Type R. You can't like do it in a serious adult thing.
I think that the styling of that says that you're immature.
Yeah.
And that you
like if you try to go get like a home loan in your Civic Type R, no way, man.
No, sorry. We see what you're driving out there.
I used to make that mistake when I lived in Detroit and I would go apartment hunting.
Yeah.
I would always make sure that I did it when I didn't have some sort of ridiculous car. Only because there was one time I went to look at an apartment and I showed up and I was driving a Maybach S-Class. And they were like, oh, so you can definitely afford this then. I'm like, no, no, I can't.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so Type Rs. Yeah.
Yep. I've seen a lot of them around. I see them everywhere.
So they're selling as expected.
Yeah.
I know that some dealers are still marking them up, which is stupid. But it's a great car. Love the Type R.
Yeah. So speaking of Japanese vehicles, did you go to the Japanese class? You weren't.
No,
here.
I was out of town. But
out of town.
I saw a bunch of people went, and I've been in previous years.
Okay, but you went.
I did. I went this year, and an interesting kind of take on it compared to the previous years.
Okay.
So this is the second year the event has been across the bay, I guess you would say. So it's on the it's actually right next to the Shoreline Drive where the Long Beach Grand Prix happens. It's right near the start-finish line.
It's kind of by the aquarium, right?
Kind of, yeah, a little further down from there. The Marina Green Park is what it's called. It's actually probably about twice the size of the Queen Mary Park or whatever it was where it used to be before, where it was for many, 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 many years.
Right.
Except for the 1 year it was in Irvine, but that's a different story.
Ew.
Yeah.
I say that because I have to drive to Irvine tomorrow morning for something.
I don't like that. Okay.
So this is my first year attending on that side, and I've probably been to 6, 7, maybe 8 of them prior to this. And so I've had a good experience, with the show being on the other side, but this was my first time there, and I mean, it was great to see all the cars.
Yeah.
But I think that and I'm probably going to put my foot in my mouth here, from an organizational standpoint, they've got a little bit more work to do because they're getting a large crowd.
Too many people?
I would say definitely too many people. I couldn't take any pictures. I gave my camera, which is just my phone, to my daughter who was with me and had her take the pictures for me because she was able to sneak into. I mean, I said just take a picture, whatever you want. But I mean, I got some interesting stuff out of there. But no, she did a good job.
Is it that the venue isn't large enough, or that they just
the venue? I think it's the venue has grown so much that they can just have so many more people come in now.
Oh, sure.
But do they have the cars really packed together?
No, I mean this is the same facility or venue that hosts Toyota Fest, which is another big fun Japanese car event that we have here in Southern California. Completely different atmosphere and everything at that show. I think it's just because of the variety of cars that are there, because you have something from almost every single Japanese manufacturer, and I literally mean almost any Japanese manufacturer.
Oh yeah,
there's a Suzuki section.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that's there. But I think that they put a big emphasis on security, which is great in this day and age. Not to get into that whole thing about event security and stuff like that, but I waited in line for 45 minutes
just to get in.
Get in.
Okay.
Which is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which is a little ridiculous. And like my 6-year-old daughter got like wanded down with like the thing. And it's like she's
and it's not like a big formal fancy event. I went last year and I remember seeing that too, where they had like security for people walking in, and I'm like, why? Like like it's a parking lot.
Yeah.
Kind of.
When it was on the other side, they I don't think they had it.
Interesting.
Like, but I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it kind of like already deterred the day from being
and it
was
of fun. And
then just again, this is kind of a thing that the Radwood guys learned about, like the food and stuff like that. Like they had very few of those, and like to buy a bottle of water, it was like 30 minutes to wait in line. And so by that point, my 6-year-old daughter was already like,
you want to go home?
She's done.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
I was like, okay, well, we got to walk around the whole entire show now. So, a lot of Hot Wheels I had to buy her later. She was happy. But overall though, like each year, from the way I understand the way the event works, each year they go back 25 years, and that's whatever is there is eligible.
Sure.
And so they'll typically have an influx of vehicles. I remember there was the year that the S13 chassis 240SX was eligible.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, this is still on the other side, a couple years back, probably maybe 50, 60 of those cars. And it's like, after 50 or 60 of them, you're like, yeah, okay, that's it. And I think what's gone on now is because they're in the larger facility, they get just, okay, well, we used to allow maybe 10 or 15, 240Zs in, but now it's like, oh, we can let 60 of them in. And it's just like, it's cool to see all of them together. And that is awesome, but it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then the way that they kind of stage the cars, and they've always done this, and this is something that I appreciate about like the Radwood shows, is they all have them sectioned off, like, or not sectioned off, but there's like the Nissan section, there's the Honda section,
sure,
everything, versus like, I'd like to see something a bit more better mingled.
Well, that's what I love about Radwood. Yeah.
It's just like,
because you have like a Daihatsu Charade right next to
Totally,
a Lincoln
totally.
Continental or something. Yeah.
I have to say I was super bummed as a native of there not being able to go to Radwood Detroit this weekend.
Yeah.
This
that
past
looked
weekend.
amazing.
Oh, God,
Only because the Detroit car scene that's where I grew up. That's my whole life. And I was seeing all the pictures that people are posting from there, and I'm like, oh my God. Like,
it looked like they had a huge show there this weekend. Like there were some pictures where it was like cars as far as the eye can see, which is, obviously awesome and great for them. But yeah, I was like, man, I love the Japanese classic cars, and I love the JCCS and everything, but I was like, I really wish I was in Detroit this weekend.
Our new social media editor, who's based in Detroit, was like just sending me photos all weekend from me, and I'm like, I can't. And I'm like, I'm driving the M8 on the track in Portugal right now, but I'd so rather be hanging out in Detroit at this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, though, like I think I might skip the next couple JCCSs, just waiting to like get their groove in that new location. And it's cool to see all the cars that are there, but a lot of the times it's some of the same cars that you'll see. There'll be new builds and stuff that are there, but
you tend to do that with a lot of car shows that are repeated,
right?
Where you get the same people showing the same stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I say it's a good thing because like bring my charade to the third LA Radwood.
Totally.
But at the same time, it's just like, it's kind of like something you kind of expect to see after a while. Like at the JCCS, there's always at least one Toyota Sports 800, which is basically my all-time favorite car. And so I always know that at least once a year, I'm going to get to see one of them.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that's great. I mean, it's always parked next to a 2000 GT, which is arguably a much better car. But no, I go for the 44 horsepower 2-cylinder air-cooled car.
Yeah, oh yeah, me too. I love that stuff.
It's always
that's totally my jam.
Always the cool thing to see. So, but yeah, so hopefully next year, you know, I heard it too around, just a lot of people talking like, man, the taco truck ran out of rice and they ran out of cheese and they ran out of chicken, and it was just like, man, you know. So hopefully they get a little bit better.
Yeah, running an event is hard.
Yeah, event planning is
very hard. Yeah, no,
it's difficult.
I get it. I get it. But I mean, it was so good for so many years when it was across the way at the Queen.
Well, it's like anything. It's like, oh no, it's popular.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Right. But yeah, no, I remember I went last year, and it's one of those things where like it was cool, but I found that after about 30 minutes, I was done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just you would do a lap and be like, okay, there's so many people here. I don't want to be here anymore. Like I've seen everything, and now I'm just done.
Well, and that's kind of the nice thing about things like Radwood, and like you're talking about the Goodwood Revival, where there's other elements to it that are layered.
Radwood is a full day event. You want to be there all day. Revival is, I mean, it's there for 3 days, and I'm like, I need to be there open to close all 3 days.
Yep.
So
yeah,
totally. I got to figure out what I'm going to drive to Radwood, LA this year.
Well, we were trying to figure. Well, you know what you're driving.
I know what I'm driving.
So I mean, I don't have anything in a personal fleet that's eligible, but luckily I know the car companies that have vaults of old cars around here. So.
Yes.
Last year I took the '99 Civic Si from Honda's collection.
That was the blue. Was it blue?
Yeah, the blue one. Which everyone was like, the best part about that car was that it only had 750 miles on it.
Yeah.
Which is just. But I got to drive it all weekend and bring it out there. So. The year before, I went with Mazda, and I took the.
Which one did you drive?
I drove the '92 Cosmo, the Unos Cosmo,
those.
which is like
I love those.
The coolest car. It's like that engine is so smooth, and that car is so comfortable and beautiful. And yeah, I drove the Cosmo.
Our listeners can't see the jealousy on my face.
Yeah,
Mazda did this whole thing where they were like, let's take a bunch of cars out of the basement. So we drove. There were 2 RX-7s. One guy I know drove the when they did that Miata Coupe concept from like
the yellow one. Right?
The yellow one.
Yep.
It was like the M Coupe, and then we had the one of the original Mazda 929s.
Nice,
which is just beautiful,
amazing.
Yeah, but the Cosmo,
yeah, that's a really, really good looking car.
I love that car.
Yeah, when we went to Radwood Vegas, that was one of my favorites that I kept just ogling over.
Yeah, that one that showed up late, and it was kind of parked over there with the sun hitting it just perfectly.
Yeah.
My dream is going to be to go to Radwood, Japan, because that's going to be like my sensory overload for sure.
Well, and that was supposed to happen, and I guess it didn't happen. But
I'm hoping they can get it going. Yeah, we'll see. I am going to the Tokyo Motor Show this year, which is going to be very special for a number of reasons.
I totally want to do that.
It's like it's every other year, and it's the best car show. Yeah, the best new car show.
Yes, I would totally love to do that. Yeah, so there's 2 things now I have to do. Damn you! Why were you on this podcast today?
Sorry.
Goodwood Revival and
let me spend your money on events that you need to go to.
Yes.
Or you could just pack us in a big carry-on. And
I'm just going to put together like a must-see event guide.
Yeah. I mean, if CNET needs some freelancers, just for a few months here and there, just to go to events, I'm sure somebody here could.
I will go ahead and write the check myself.
That sounds good.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
nice.
Yeah. All right. I don't have to be in the cabin of the airplane. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll wear a jacket.
Well, I guess that's a pretty good podcast right there. What do you think?
I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
It feels like a banger to me.
Yeah, we touched on a lot of topics.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. Where can everybody find you on the internets?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Steven Ewing, and you can read me at theroadshow.com or cnet.com/roadshow, and I am there.
Nice. What about you, Paul?
Everybody can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Paul's Finest Hour.
I'm on youtube.com/HelloRoad. I just did a review of the Hyundai Santa Fe SE, the base model.
Really, I saw that.
Really exciting. Oh, you did? Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I saw
it. Nice. Very exciting base model. And then you can also find me on Instagram, Mr. Ethan Tufts, and Twitter, which kind of like you, Paul, I don't do a whole lot there. I should probably spend more time there, but then I'd get angry when I
just
look
like
at
a lot of things.
news.
I made a whole thing where I deleted my Facebook this year so I could focus more on Instagram and Twitter.
Yes. Okay.
So
okay. That's good. No more Facebook.
No more Facebook.
Screw them.
Very
All right.
good.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.